Good morning and welcome to episode number 1 of In Bad Form. I am your host, Marc Leavitt, and I have doubted the very reality that presents itself since I was just a child. And what I mean by that is that ever since I was little, I've always suspected that there was an other side to life. That was more real and that would put this world into its proper perspective to make this world make sense. And this suspicion manifested in several ways, such as thoughts that I suspected sleep was designed as a way that we could connect back to the world that we are actually in, and we can't be from it away from it for too long, so that's what sleep's for. I also had a suspicion always that there was nothing behind us, that if the world only materializes in front of us, and if we're not looking at it, it just doesn't materialize, as it reverts back to nothing. I've always had a feeling that we're always being watched, like our life is like a movie, being watched or recorded. And of course, as I grew, my questions of reality evolved from what is this, to where is this, to why is this, to how is this. And my mild curiosity of reality grew until it fully blossomed about when I started college. That was at the time when I started to really look around at space, at the planet, look around at everything and just wonder, where are we? What the heck is this? No one's ever really told us where we are, what we are, why we are, and how we are. And we just find ourselves here just going blindly by what the generation did before us, which they did blindly following the generation before them. And I just always had a very unsettling feeling that we never really figured out what this was, what this place is, and what we're doing. And as a person in college age, that's when you're really supposed to be figuring out what you're supposed to be doing for your life. So this was critically important for me. Before I decide what I'm going to do with my life, what is life? What is this? What is this reality we find ourselves in? No one ever told us. We have no instructions. We just find ourselves here, and we're just listening to the generation before us, listening to the authorities that present themselves. And I never had any faith in the authorities. I never had any exposure to religion. Science admitted they didn't know the answer to the important questions that I was asking. So I started my search in earnest in college age with astronomy. I wanted to know where we were. So I took up astronomy. And soon enough, I found out astronomy was basically just a physics class. It didn't satisfy my thirst for knowing where we were or what this was. So I thought I'd turn my attention from outer space to inner space. And again, I don't even know if there, is a such thing as inner space. This is something I deduced with my mind back then, that if there was an outer space, surely there must be an inner space. So psychology was the logical alternative to astronomy. So I studied psychology. That got me into meditation, which led into philosophy. So I added philosophy as a major to my degree in psychology. So after I graduated with a degree in psychology and philosophy, that's when I became really, really serious as a spiritual practitioner. That's when I got into Tibetan Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, Dzogchen as a philosophy. And then also as a practice, I really became interested in non-ordinary states of awareness to complement everything I was learning in the philosophy of Buddhism. So I became interested in out-of-body experiences, lucid dreaming, this technology by the Monroe Institute called hemisync. Briefly, what hemisync is it's just a sound technology that when you listen to it, it entrains your brain. The left side of the brain and the right side of the brain are synchronized to create very particular experiences, everything from meditation to out-of-body experiences to just a quick nap or a good sleep. A lot of good uses for this technology. Obviously, I was using it for more of, deeper mental explorations such as lucid dreaming, out-of-body experiences, or just deep meditations. And I'd say this peaked with me actually going to the Monroe Institute. The Monroe Institute actually has week-long programs where you're saturated in meditation and stillness and these non-ordinary experiences for a week. And after I returned home from my last visit to the Monroe Institute, that's when things started to get non-ordinary in my ordinary life. Up until this point, I had never had anything remotely non-ordinary in my life. I'd always wished for something non-ordinary. I always felt like I was doomed to never see a UFO or never see a ghost or never have anything to be seen, anything unworldly. Up to that point, I'd never had anything that shook the foundations of this world, but I was always jealous of people that did. And I felt like somehow, I wouldn't be able to experience anything non-ordinary or unworldly. But as soon as I came home from the last trip to the Monroe Institute, I'm guessing it's 2000, I had my first, what I'm calling visions. I refer to these 4 experiences as visions just because there is no word or history or any foundation for what I experienced. I call them visions because the experiences were visual and they, how do I say this? They were overlaying what I was seeing with my eyes. So all of these 4 visions that I'm going to explain to you, they all happened in my ordinary life while I'm walking around, spending time with my family or by myself, just going about my daily life. Suddenly, without warning and without provocation on my part, the world just changed, and overlaying what I'm normally seeing would be a vision of something much deeper and a showing or a teaching me something very instructional. So I had 4 of these visions. Each one seemed to build upon the next, giving me a wider perspective of reality. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the first vision that I had when I came back from the Monroe Institute. And again, I'm just using the word vision because there is no word. I don't have anything to look at or to research to give me a basis of anything in history showing me where people had these experiences, except in what you hear of visions, where people are looking at the world and then a different vision overlays on top of what you're normally seeing in this world. So I returned back from the Monroe Institute. I'm sitting in my kitchen and I'm playing with this new type of found awareness that I discovered at the Monroe Institute. While we're experimenting with out-of-body experiences, I discovered a new state of awareness, a new way of being, a new orientation that I found myself. And as I was playing with this new orientation, I found my awareness suddenly, spontaneously popped back behind my head, like just about, maybe a few inches behind my head. So I found my center of awareness, instead of being right here, to be about back here. And as soon as I did that, the sight of my kitchen, which is the refrigerator, counters, walls of my kitchen, on top of that, superimposed on top of that, was a vision of an ocean, for the lack of a better words. Like, you could describe it as the static on the TV or the shimmering of an ocean. But basically, I just saw shimmering. I just saw an ocean. Let's just say an ocean shimmering with the light on top of it. And in this vision, as I'm staring at this vision of this shimmering ocean, I knew what I was being shown was the one, the collective, that this is everything. This is reality as a whole. And after, seeing it for what it is, then the vision shifts with a different emphasis. It's still on the ocean, but now the emphasis is on the individual drops of the ocean. Now it looks like a huge screen. If you picture just like a screen you have in your window, and if you were to place that screen over, butter or any type of thick liquid, each screen would create a little hole, or a little separate little butter thing popping up out of each little hole. So instead of having one big thing of butter, you'd have infinite little holes of butter getting squished through the screen. So basically, that's what I was shown. At first, I was shown all is one, a shimmering ocean, and you just see it as one ocean. And then next, the focus switched to the individual droplets, showing me that the individual and the one are the same thing. They're both the same, just depending upon which perspective you look at. So this experience was not really profound compared to the following ones, but I do include it because it was the first one that was, like I said, a non-ordinary experience, and it does build upon the next ones. So the next one I'm going to go to is about, let's say, a year later after this vision. And this one happens when I'm in my living room. Again, spontaneously, I'm just playing with my guitar, playing to the George Harrison song, My Sweet Lord. It's a very devotional song, and I was swept up in the devotion and the love for reality, and I was just feeling all the euphoria and love for reality. And right at the peak of this love, at this moment of overjoicing of reality, a disembodied voice told me to look behind you. And I did. And as soon as I looked behind me, instead of seeing what you would expect to see your wall or, what would ever be behind you, instead I saw nothing. When I looked behind me, I saw the void, emptiness. There was absolutely nothing behind me, the unmanifest. And then as I looked back in front of me, the world as I left it was still there, but it was at a slight difference. A distance. It was at a slight distance to where now I could see what it actually was, which was a screen. The world that I'd been staring at my whole life was really just a screen that I was so close to. I had no perspective to see that I was not, just awareness pressed up against the screen. I felt like I was in the screen. But this perspective of seeing behind me, seeing absolutely nothing behind me, and then the world appearing on a screen in front of me revealed what was always there in the first place, which was everything we see, including our bodies, anything that you could see is on a screen of awareness, and we're watching it. And like I said, there was a gap in between me and the screen to show that everything that I was seeing was clearly appearing on a screen. And this experience lasted a few minutes. I would keep going back and forth between looking behind me and seeing the void, and then writing it down, just writing about it. And then looking back up and then noticing the world was there on a screen, my living room. Everything that I'd ever known was just on a screen. I wasn't in it. I wasn't a part of it. I was just watching the screen. So after this experience ended, I felt like a part of me died. It was a very profound experience. It permanently changed the way I looked at myself and looked at my relationship to the world. At no point after that did I ever feel like I was inside of a world. I saw firsthand that I was witnessing the world. And when I say the world, my body is included in the world. My thoughts are included in the world. These words, these sounds, these visuals, everything that is appears in the world. And I am the awareness observing this world. So after this experience, like I said, it completely changed the way I looked at the world, the way I viewed myself, the way I viewed my relationship to the world. But what confounded me was that I still didn't understand how the mechanics of how the one manifests as the many. I saw myself as pure awareness, but yet my life continued. So for the next year, I was confounded with seemingly two realities. The reality that I'd known for the prior 30 years, because this happened in 2002. No, I take it back. The experience where I saw behind me happened in 2001. So I was only 31 years old. So I have my 31 years of memories of, seeing myself as a person in the world. And then this new memory, this new experience, this new reality that showed beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was not in the world, that I was simply witnessing the world, that I was awareness watching whatever manifestations took place. And about a year later, 2002, August of 2002, that's when I had the third vision. The third vision is what I called the diamond vision. That's also the one I refer to as enlightenment, because that is the only vision that I had that caused me to drop all of my seeking. That was the only vision that spontaneously I was no longer interested in a spiritual pursuit or seeking of any type. That's when I stopped reading and participating in groups and meditating and doing anything that I felt like was, working towards a goal. And the diamond vision, that actually happened, as I said, as a consequence of me finally solving the paradox of the one and the many. And it started actually with my daughter sitting on my lap. I just gotten home from work. I work nights, so it was like probably 8 o'clock in the morning, maybe 7 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sitting on the back deck with my daughter, sitting on my lap. And I'm just staring at her, wondering as usual, how is she me? I'm not privy to any of her thoughts. I'm not privy to her perception. I know she's me, but how is she me? How is this being pulled off? And no sooner than I had that thought, I found my perspective suddenly and spontaneously shifted from behind my eyes to behind my daughter's eyes. So in one moment, I found myself behind my daughter's eyes, seeing what she was seeing. I should add that I wasn't privy to her thoughts. If she was having any. She was very young at the time, 2000, so she would have been 2002, so she would have been 6 years old. So I don't remember, obviously, any thoughts in her mind, but I was seeing everything she was seeing from her perspective. And this perspective didn't last long, maybe a minute or two, maybe not even that long. But the next perspective, I was not just seeing from behind her eyes, I was seeing from behind the eyes of every living being in reality. The perception that I was seeing was I was looking through the holes of every single eye in reality, that I was the eye behind all eyes. And as I'm the eye behind all eyes, you're not aware of any of the specifics of any of the perceptions of each eye. You're only aware of the whole, where you're seeing everything at once. And when you're seeing everything at once, you're not seeing anything in particular from the specific eyes, just the whole, looking at it from the whole. So whereas the first experience, I backed up far enough to see that I was awareness watching my life, my screen, my reality, my body, my avatar, my living room. This next experience, the diamond experience, I backed up so far, it was like looking at a facet of a diamond where I saw that I was not just behind my movie screen, but all of the infinite eyes that exist. And after that perception waned, which lasted seemingly longer than the experience where I was seeing from my daughter's eyes, after this experience waned, I found myself back behind my eyes, staring back at the mountains in my backyard as I was before. But this time, when I'm staring at the yard and staring at the mountains, I don't see them as outside me. I see them and experience them as me. So when I'm looking at the mountains, I experience the mountains as you would your feet or your toes. You know they're you. I experience the rolling hills as you would your tummy, how you know that's you. I experience the rivers as if they're my hands in a way that you know that you're you. So when I returned back to my perception was back to just seeing my single view, but my single view was not the same. Now my single view is seeing the world as me. So that vision was incredibly life-changing and profound, as you can imagine. When I went back to work a few days, seeing people for the first time, I just knew they were me. Then going to the park and the carnival, with my wife and daughter, I'm just experiencing everybody as me. And it wasn't done. Spontaneously, just a couple months after this, somebody was asking a question on a forum about this experience of enlightenment. And when I thought to answer what they thought by the word enlightenment, I paused and I contemplated to try to, put myself in their shoes of what they thought enlightenment to be. And then when I did that, I had my final vision. This vision started with me standing up. I'm sitting at my computer, writing a letter to somebody, trying to explain enlightenment. And I stood up, I guess, to just try to concentrate better and, really focus. And I stood up and I closed my eyes, concentrated on what enlightenment was. And as soon as I did that, the world just disappeared. Everything just went black. There was no existence. There was no content. There was no differentiation. There was no manifestation. Everything, the whole universe ended. And when it ended, it's complete blackness, complete void, as I described when I looked behind me. So as I'm experiencing the void, as I'm experiencing the unmanifest, slowly the unmanifest starts to move, starts to churn. And I say churn because it's still blackness. It's almost as if there's movement underneath the blackness, almost as if there's the way I describe it in my book is there's if you were to describe it visually, there's blackness upon blackness. There's blackness shifting with blackness. You just feel a sense of rumbling, a sense of potential, a sense of activity, a sense of movement, but yet it's still blackness. But the blackness goes from complete blackness to like shades of blackness, contrasting with other shades of blackness, where there's just a rumbling of blackness, of shifting of different blacknesses. And from the shifting and rumbling and moving of these blacknesses comes full-blown movement. And then from the full-blown movement, now you get, light and colors, but no shapes. And then from the lights and colors, then they start to take shape. And then the lights and colors start to take shape, but definite shapes, but don't mean anything. The shapes are there, but they don't mean anything to you. So you're just seeing shapes and you're seeing colors and you're seeing things, but it doesn't render any meaning for you. It's just colors and shapes. Then as the colors and shapes become more defined, finally, I'm looking at the colors and shapes, staring at the colors and shapes, making no sense of the colors and shapes. And then in the next moment, it gets a little bit more clear. The colors and shapes that I'm staring at are my daughter's closet. It's my daughter's closet filled with her clothes and the colorful objects in the closet. So it goes from seeing colors and shapes to not making any sense of them to finally seeing, oh, I get it. These colors and shapes are actually clothes, and then the memory of them being clothes reminds you, oh, that's right. I'm a person that has a daughter that has clothes, and I'm in her room. And that's right. A minute ago, I was doing this post on enlightenment. I was writing about it, and the world disappeared. And here I am. And when I came back, I saw that the world that I was looking at was stretched out coming from me, that I was awareness, and the world that I was looking at was really just me extended out, kind of like a black hole. Kind of, you take a piece of paper and you press it in, that flatness. So if you take actually the way I described it in my book was a piece of string. So if awareness is a piece of string, that would be undifferentiated awareness. That would be just the one. Now, if you took that string and you bent it up to form a fold, now you have awareness of awareness. That's the black hole. That is our reality. And that's what I discovered with this vision, is that everything that we take to be our reality is really just awareness, our awareness bent up to complete a complete loop. So we are in a loop of awareness, watching ourselves as, and watching ourselves and the world as another. We're taking ourselves to be a world and another. So, after that experience where I saw that everything that I was looking at was really just me stretched out, and I'm looking, and my whole life I'm just me looking inside of me, that was the last vision that I ever had. After that, just as soon as these visions started, that was it. And as soon as that happened, I'd say within months, we moved out to the mountains, and we lived there for 15 years. And as I said before, I lost interest in books. I lost interest in meditating. And instead, the nature became my teacher. I would spend all my time in the mountains and the rivers and getting lost in nature. And nature became my teacher in more valuable ways than I could ever express. So, okay, so that was around 2002. So 2002 is when I had the final vision, and we move out to the Blue Ridge Mountains, deep in the mountains. I mean, we had 7 acres, we had a river, mountain views all around us, the Appalachian Trail, Skyline Drive, Blue Ridge Parkway. I mean, it was beautiful. And that's where I met my final teacher, nature. That's where nature began to teach me what I have come to call the triunistic model of reality. So, about 10 years after we moved there, so we moved out in 2002, and 2012, after 10 years, that's when I finally decided to write a book about those experiences that I just shared with you. It actually wasn't originally intended to be a book. It was really just a story I wanted to put together for myself and for my daughter so I wouldn't forget it. But as I got more involved with it, it turned into a book. And after I published the book, then I lost interest in it, because that's when I became aware of the marketing aspect, the business aspect of the book. And I wasn't prepared for that mentally. I was very naive going into all of this. Like I said, I just wanted to share my experiences. I didn't really want to talk about it or anything. I just wanted to get it out there. But I got a wake-up call finding out about the business or practical aspect of being an author and putting out a book. So I just dropped out and didn't follow up with the book. I actually wrote most of book 2 and book 3 at the same time that I wrote book 1, but I just never finished them. I went right back to nature, went right back to reality, and lost an interest in the books until about 10 years later. So that would have been 2012. So in 2017, 5 years after that, we moved to Tampa. We moved out from the mountains, moved to Tampa, moved to the beach. And it was 2020 that I came out of a really dark period. And that dark period is what inspired me to finally finish the final 2 books that I started but never completed. So it encouraged me to, number one, finish up with answering the questions that people had for me about book 1, because I left in a haste. I set up a YouTube site. I set up all kinds of things to share it with people. But as soon as I did, I just lost interest and retreated back into the woods. So like I said, 5 years later, I renewed my interest and I become invigorated and really, really passionate and enthusiastic for the fun of it to continue to finish book 2 and book 3. So that's what I did. So in 2020, I started to finish book 2 and I finished book 3, put it out on YouTube. So I read all of book 2. I finished book 2. I finished book 3. I read them on YouTube. So the books were done, but then I had to go back and do the work of putting them in paper form, creating illustrations, book covers. And that's where I'm just finishing out. That's where I'm just finishing now. And as I put these books out on YouTube, I started to get a lot of feedback back from my Asian readers. My books are also published by a different publishing company in China and Taiwan. And I was getting a lot of positive feedback from the readers saying that they liked how I communicated to them more informally, more casually than the teachers that they had. And I let them know that, everything that I learned was from the Eastern philosophy teachers. Everything that I learned was from Buddhism, Zen, or Dzogchen. But for some reason or another, they were benefiting from the way that I was saying what I learned from them. So it reminded me of evolution. And the way evolution works is kind of a back and forth. So let's take Jamaican music, reggae, for instance. So reggae was very influential to America. So then American music would be influenced by reggae, and they would create a new type of music. Then reggae would be influenced by this new type of American music that was influenced by reggae. Then they would put out a new type of music, and this goes back and forth until you have an evolution of a genre of music. The same thing, I think, goes with philosophy. I think that this philosophy that derived in the East, non-duality, has taken a foothold in the West. So now we in the West, we've absorbed this non-dual philosophy, and we're putting it back there after we've absorbed it. And so now that's happening in the East. Now the East is getting the Western version of the Eastern philosophy spit right back to them. And I just think this is how all of evolution works. So after talking with these readers from Asia, I went back and looked at some of my Zen books. Even though I haven't read, like I said, since 2002, Zen books are the only books that I'm able to return to, just because the way they're written, they're not written in a way that they're trying to take you from A to B. They're not written to you like you're somewhere else. They talk to you as if this is the only reality and this is it. So the language of Zen has always appealed to me, even when I was not attracted to reading books at all. So I went back and I looked through some of my Zen books after these discussions with the Asian readers. And the first thing I noticed when I was reading these Zen books were that they were so pure and they were so direct in their teachings, so beautiful, like poets. And it reminded me of the way that I was talking in my books, that I think the Zen masters would consider the way that I'm speaking to be in bad form. And that's where I got the idea for the name of the podcast. I do believe that I am speaking in bad form. I think if a Zen master would have read my book, he'd say it's in bad form to talk the way I am. I noticed that the way the Zen masters talk is they don't just say things and blurt them out the way I do. I blurt them out. I'll get pictures. I'll go over the same thing 100 times just to try to get it to you. I'm saying it to you directly, and I'm trying to show you directly. I noticed when I was looking at the Zen book, they do it more through the Socratic method, where they're asking you questions. They're more pointing you back. So I have a tremendous respect for Zen. So I hold that in a higher esteem than my techniques. But I do believe that my techniques and my mannerisms, my methods are part of evolution, and they're just as necessary as anything else. But I do believe that a proper Zen master would look at the way I'm speaking about these things and say it's in bad form just because of the way I'm talking about it. But I believe it has a purpose. I believe it has a place. I believe we're in unique times now to where it's necessary for us to draw outside the lines, for us to push the limits, for us to not cage ourselves into any compartments, that we have to be informal, that we have to be irreverent, that we have to be open-minded, because we're at a time like no other to where we're really expanding into new areas of wisdom, new areas of realization that the collectively we're waking up to. So that will be the focus of my podcast. I want to speak about reality. I want to speak about very serious issues: reality, life, non-ordinary experiences, suffering, anything that has to do with reality, anything that has to do with life. I want to speak about it in an informal conversation, where you could be free to, draw outside the lines, where you could be free to be irreverent. So if you're interested in conversations on reality in bad form, then come back here every week. I haven't even decided on a particular format. I definitely want to have guests. I want to have my listeners to be the guest. I want it to be engaging. I want it to be, I want to feed off of each other's energy. I want to talk to you, you talk to me, and a symbiotic energetic relationship where we're learning from each other. So again, my name is Marc Leavitt. The podcast is called In Bad Form, and I'm going to be opening it up to questions. Oh, also, I'm going to have a website. If you want to ask questions on a message board, just go to my website. It's not finished yet, but if you type in thisawarespace.com, again, it's thisawarespace, thisawarespace.com. ep1.com. This aware space, I'm going to have a message board if you just want to ask a question. I'm going to have the podcast to where I'll let you know in advance to where I'm going to set it up with Zoom so I could have people on there so they could ask questions live and we could have a conversation, and that could be the podcast. A blog, and just a community where we can get together and advance the conversation about reality. So once again, my name is Marc Leavitt. Join me in bad form. Thank you very much.